Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make an Easter egg basket cake. It's a cake decorated to look like a basket of Easter eggs. So let's get started. To get started, you will need to prepare a cake batter. You can use any recipe you like. I'm choosing to do carrot cake. And you need to make 1.5 times the recipe because we will be making 4 cake layers. So any recipe that calls for 2 9-inch round cake pans or 3 8-inch round pans, just make 1.5 times the cake recipe. Grease and line 2 8-inch round cake pans that are 2 inches tall or 4 8-inch pans if they're shorter. Divide the batter evenly between the 2 pans, filling them up no more than 2/3 of the way full. If you have extra batter, you can scoop it into lined muffin pans and make cupcakes to use up the rest of the batter. Bake the cakes in a preheated oven, usually 350 degrees Fahrenheit, for 25 to 30 minutes, or if you're using 2 8-inch pans that are 2 inches tall like I am, they may need 40 to 50 minutes. Just bake them until a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. When they're done, remove them from the oven and let them cool for 10 to 15 minutes until they're cooled enough to handle. Then run a butter knife around the edges to loosen them from the pan. Turn them out of the pan. Remove the parchment paper. Place them onto a cooling rack and let them cool completely. Since I'm using carrot cake, I'm going to be filling them with a cream cheese frosting. So here I have half a batch of my best ever cream cheese frosting. Feel free to fill your cakes with whatever you like, or just use the same frosting you're going to be covering the cake with. Then I also have 1 batch of my best ever vanilla buttercream frosting. I'll link to the video showing how to make this in the description box. And if you're going to be using the frosting between the cake layers instead of adding filling, you'll need to make 1.5 times that recipe. Once the cakes are completely cooled, trim off the tops so they're flat and cut them in half horizontally to make 4 cake layers. Or if they were baked in 4 cake pans, then just trim the tops. Set aside the trimmed tops. Then to assemble the cake, here I have a 12-inch round cake board with a turntable underneath. Spread a little frosting onto the cake board so the cake sticks to it. Add the bottom half of one of the cake layers onto it, making sure it's centered. Pipe a border of the buttercream frosting around the edges. Then add your filling. Add the top half of the next cake layer. Pipe a border around the edges. Add your filling. And add the bottom of the next cake layer upside down on top so the top is completely flat. We're going to be using the last cake layer for something else, so just put it to the side for now. Then cover the whole cake in a thin layer of frosting. Don't worry about how it looks at this point, it's all going to be covered up later on. Then place the cake into the fridge until the frosting is set. Take the last cake layer, break it up, and add it into a bowl. Then crumble it up into small pieces. If you like, you can also add the trimmed tops of the cakes into here too. Then add some frosting. Mix it in using your hands until it's combined, and the mixture should be a consistency of soft Play-Doh. If it's too dry, add in more frosting. Scoop out even-sized portions of the cake pop mixture. I'm using an ice cream scoop to make sure they're all even. Roll it into a ball. Then shape it into an egg shape by rolling the top into a bit of a rounded point. Place them onto a pan lined with parchment paper. Then keep going for the rest of them, and feel free to make them any size you like. Then place them into the freezer until they're nice and solid so they hold their shape. Take the rest of the frosting and add a very small amount of brown food coloring to get a tan color. Or you can add a little cocoa powder and make it into a light chocolate frosting. And you will need a basket weave piping tip, which is this one that's smooth on one side and has a comb on the other side. So add it into a piping bag. Cut off the tip. Turn the top half of the bag inside out. And fill the bag with the tan-colored frosting. If you have never piped a basket weave design, you can practice on a sheet of parchment paper first. Not my first time doing it, I'm just showing you guys how to do it. So start by piping a vertical line. Then pipe horizontal lines across the vertical strip, leaving space between each one about the same width as the piping tip. Pipe another vertical line onto the edge of all the horizontal lines. Then pipe the short horizontal lines again, starting in between the lines from before. Pipe another vertical strip. And keep repeating that process. And you can scrape the frosting back into the piping bag. Remove the chilled cake from the fridge. And pipe the basket weave design onto the sides of the cake just like before. And keep going until all the sides of the cake are covered. It's not as hard as it seems, it's just a little time-consuming. For those of you wondering how long this took me, it took 12.5 minutes. Add some coconut into a small bowl. Add some liquid green food coloring. And mix until well combined and all the coconut is green. Pipe some frosting onto the cake board all around the cake. Spread it out a little. And add the green-colored coconuts onto it. Pipe some more frosting onto the top of the cake. Spread it out. And add the green-colored coconut onto the top of the cake. If you don't like coconuts, you can color some frosting green and pipe it on using a grass piping tip, and I showed how to do that in my Easter cake video from last year. Then you're going to need some white chocolate. If you're using real chocolate, which contains the ingredient cocoa butter, you will need to temper it. I have a video showing how and why to temper chocolate, and I'll link to it in the description box. If it doesn't contain the ingredients cocoa butter, such as candy melts or white melting wafers, it doesn't need tempering, so you can just melt it and use it and it sets fine, but it doesn't taste as good as the real chocolate. Now we need to thin it out a little so it covers the eggs smoothly. So add a very small amount of coconut oil or shortening into the white chocolate. You only need a very small amount, a little goes a long way. You don't want it too thin or the chocolate is going to run and drip everywhere. Divide the chocolate into separate bowls using however many colors you would like your Easter eggs to be. Then cover the chocolates using oil-based or powdered food coloring. You can't use liquid or gel food coloring or it will make the chocolate seize, and I explained that in my tempering chocolates video. Remove the cake pop eggs from the freezer. Poke a toothpick into the bottom of them. And dip it into the melted white chocolate, making sure it's all covered. Then place it into a piece of styrofoam to hold up the eggs so it doesn't get flat on one side. I also covered it in parchment paper to catch any drips. Then keep going for the rest of them, working quickly before the cake pop eggs soften too much. I'm keeping them in the freezer and pulling them out one at a time so they stay nice and solid when I'm dipping them. And here's an easier way I came up with while doing this. First, hold the top of the egg and dip the bottom half into the chocolate. Poke the toothpick into the bottom, then dip the top into it. Once the chocolate is set, you can remove them from the styrofoam and pull out the toothpicks. Then place the eggs onto the top of the cake, choosing the best side facing up. Now for the handle of the basket, which is the hardest part about this whole cake. So if you like, you can just add a piece of ribbon for the handle, or if you would like the whole cake edible, here's how to make it out of chocolate. First, melt some white chocolate and temper it if needed. Then add a piece of milk or dark chocolate into it and stir it around, letting some of it melt into the white chocolate until it's about the same tan color as the frosting on the cake. Then take a cold marble board. I had this in the fridge for about an hour, so it's nice and cold. If you don't have a marble board, you can use a baking pan. You would just have to work quickly because it comes back to room temperature very fast. Add 2 strips of parchment paper across the board about 1 inch apart. And pour the melted chocolate across the gap in between the 2 sheets of parchment paper. Spread it out quickly. Then lift off the 2 sheets of parchment paper so it's straight on both sides, or if the chocolate sets too fast from the cold surface, you can cut it with a knife. And because it's on a cold surface, it sets fast, and when you lift it off the board, it bends easily but still holds its shape. Add a little chocolate onto each end of the strip, and let it arch over the cake, sticking each end onto both sides. Or another easy option is to just let the handle hang down the sides instead of arching over the top of the cake. Then add some support underneath it, and let the chocolate set. Make sure the room isn't too hot or it can soften and break. So if you need to, keep the cake in the fridge while the chocolate is setting. And as long as the chocolate is tempered, it should hold up well in this shape. So once it's set, you can remove the support, and the Easter egg basket cake is ready. And that's how to make an Easter egg basket cake. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give this video a like and check out my channel for many more videos and subscribe to my channel for more to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.